All right. Well, Katie, welcome to the call. How are you doing tonight?
Great, thanks, Dr. Curt. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Had a great week. I spent some time with my dad and working on cars and helping him get some things done. We got summer rolling in up here.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, hard to believe earlier about brain health and why it's so important to worry about our brain, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is a topic that hits home for me because my father developed early onset Alzheimer's at the age of 54 years of age.
54. How fast did it progress, if I can
Uh, s-
ask?
so 7 years is typically how long it lasts from time to being first diagnosed. Obviously, probably had symptoms before then, but first diagnosed to death. So 7 years. So he passed at 61.
Wow. But from when you recognized that there was a problem to when it became a problem,
Yeah,
how
so the
long did
first
that take?
time I recognized it was a problem. I was 21 and he died when I was 29, so 2 years before he was diagnosed, I
Two
noticed
years.
before I noticed an issue. And I do know that the issue that I noticed that we were playing pool, it was my 21st birthday, and he potted the black ball first. And we said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "You don't pot the black ball until that's the last shot." And he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that was it." So it was started sort of from there, but it would have been brewing under the surface. And today I feel like, we've got a lot more information. I know we've got some genetic things going on, and there's a new study that came out that I published, and that I did a post on rather. And they've discovered the top three causes of dementia slash Alzheimer's, the top three main causes. Of course, these won't be the only causes. And it was over 44,000 people, and it was published just this last month. And the top cause, well, you have a guess what the top three are? I've mentioned one of them on my post.
Tell us.
Okay, so alcohol, hmm
Yep.
um, diabetes,
Yep.
and air pollution in the air.
Air pollution. Yeah. Yeah. I can believe it. They're starting to show that a lot of the studies that were talking about amyloid plaques and things like that, that those studies were falsified in order to sell medication. So I totally agree with you, Katie, that we got to start looking at the things that we do, because they say that, only about 10% of Alzheimer's is actually genetic. Most of it is all environmental.
Yeah, so in the picture that I posted, there was so my dad was an aircraft maintenance engineer, used to work, soldering the radios, the keyboards, oh, how would you call it? The circuitry in
Yep.
airplanes and stuff like that. And they would use a soldering iron, and they use like little bits of metal and that to
Yeah, and
uh
there's
bring.
in the old solder, there used to be a lot of lead.
Exactly. And I remember going into the room when I was at high school. So this was 3 years before he was first signed for showing the sign, and his work office was filled with smoke, no ventilation, and it was all the vapor from the soldering. And there was like three or four guys in there just soldering away, and they had no ventilation, nothing. They were breathing it in, and that would have gone on for years and years and years. So that's
Mhm.
airborne particles right there, coupled with all the other issues that he had too. He did drink, not heavily, but just the occasional drink. But he was
Mhm.
deficient in the B12 and B6, and he also had hemochromatosis, iron overload. So he had a few of those factors going on there. So yeah, so that was back then.
You bet. Well, Katie, whenever I hear the story of your dad, it consumes me. It's a sad story. I mean, because people shouldn't have those diseases that at that young of an age. Um, my dad just turned 86 here 6 months ago, and he was concerned with it. He was concerned that he was going to get Alzheimer's,
Oh
and
wow.
not that it runs in the family. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, his one of his sisters had it, but I think that was more chemo induced than anything, because cancer tends to run in his family. You know, dad's beat, you know, I just found out today he's beat 6 types of cancer because he had skin cancer as well. But you know, here he is, he's 86, he lives on his own yet, and he's doing well. You know, pretty sharp. He gets upset because he can't remember people's names all the time. And I said, well, you were never good at that. Even, you know, even when he was in his 30s and 40s, he was never good at remembering names. And so I said, but you know, as far as everything else, you know, we sit there and we talk about when he was a kid, we talk about when he was in his 20s, we talk about when he was in high school, all these different things that he still remembers, sharp as a tack. A few years back, I got him taking a couple of products. First thing I got him taking was Omega. We got him taking Super Omega and Omega 3s because it's so important, because in your brain, you have these proteins, and the proteins, think of them like the computer chips. Those are the chips that makes everything work. And then the wires, you know, like you were saying, your dad soldered wires together. The wires in your brain are made out of fatty acids. And so do you want to make it out of gold wire, or do you want to make it out of cheap wire? And so that's why the omega 3s are so important, because that's the gold wire that connects the parts of the brain together. And so omega 3 is really important. So if you don't have super omega on your auto ship, make sure and put super omega. If you got to place your order yet this month, order the super omega and start taking it. It's also got CoQ10 in it, and CoQ10 is way important because it helps prevent certain types of heart disease like congestive heart failure. But the other product that I really want to talk about that seemed to make the biggest difference in my dad's life was Brain Vitality. And you know, when we switched back to the magnesium threonate, when we put that back in there, Dad can tell a difference. I mean, he said something changed in the product. He said, I can tell a difference with it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And he said after he took it for 2 weeks, this was probably 5 or 6 years ago, he'd been taking it for about 2 weeks. And he told me, he said, Curt, he said, I never want to go without this product. He says, I can tell a difference when I take it.
Well, there you go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, Roslyn, recently she was taking the Brain Vitality and then stopped. And she noticed a difference and has got back on it. So, you know, it'd be good to hear her story about it. But she said, do you think it could be impacting me? And I said, yeah, for sure. It's got heaps of ingredients in there that support the neural transmitters in the brain. And so that affects, you know, your cognitive function, but also your mood too, doesn't it?
You bet. You bet it does, because and a lot of it has to do with that. You know, we talk about these connections in the brain, the omega 3s, they make the chains, the links, whatever you want to call them. But the synapses in the brain, that's where the think of it like the two wires where they're soldered together. The synapses in the brain, you have to have a healthy synapse where the message flows from one side to the other. If the message gets mixed up, if you're thinking, say you're thinking about grass, I'm looking outside and I'm looking at my yard and the grass is bright and green and everything like that. But by the time the message gets to the other side and it says apple, your brain is going to be thinking something totally different, right? And that's what happens with people with Alzheimer's, is that message gets crisscrossed. It gets crisscrossed. They're probably all there, you know, thinking, you know, but then all of a sudden the message gets messed up. And so we got to fix the parts of the brain where the messages go across. And then we got to keep those toxins out of there, get those heavy metals out of the brain, like we were talking about with your dad. Get the B vitamins. The B vitamins are so important, you know, like you were saying. And then go to cola and some of the other things that we have in the brain vitality. And then we got this magnesium threonate. You know, they've discovered that one of the most important nutrients, one of the most important minerals for human health is magnesium. And there's different forms of magnesium. There's magnesium glycinate, there's magnesium citrate, there's magnesium oxalate, and then there's magnesium threonate. And the one that's in Brain Vitality is called magnesium threonate. And the reason that we use that one is because of all the different forms of magnesium that are out there. It jumps across the synapses, it gets into the brain, it passes through the blood-brain barrier, faster than any other form of calcium, or I mean magnesium.
Fantastic. So you don't want to be without that product. Highly recommend it. You know, losing your memory is something that you don't want to happen, and do everything you can to preserve your brain. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's really important. So we'll leave it there because we could talk about this all day, but that's some great information.
You
Thanks
bet.
for joining us.
You bet. Thanks for being here, Katie. And you know, everyone, thanks for being with us when we put these out. Listen to them. And the most important thing is pass this message on to other people. Get other people to understand that that the message is important for them.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Curt.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good.